Thank you so much, Louise, and hello everyone and welcome to OTF Connect. Thank you for giving of your own time to join us tonight. It's so wonderful to have representation from across the province and good to have new members here tonight also. It's my pleasure to welcome Lee Castle, who will be facilitating tonight's webinar on blogging as digital portfolios in the primary classroom. Lee brings much knowledge and experience to share with us tonight. So welcome, Lee, and I'll pass the mic over to you.
Great, thank you. So Louise, can I go ahead and share my screen?
Yep, let's go ahead and do that.
All right. So I just want to make sure you can see my screen clearly in the beginning slide in my deck.
I can see it, so maybe if everyone can give us a green check mark using that polling tool, let us know that you can see Lee's slides okay there.
Good.
All green check marks. Erin, if you're there, let us know if you can see it okay too.
So are we all set?
I think yes, go ahead.
Okay, perfect, great. Thank you, Syria, and it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Lee Castle, and I am a very busy mom of two, and have a wonderful husband, Brandon. My daughter, Hallie, is 5, and my son, Ty, is 3, and they both keep me very busy, but when I'm not being a mom at home, I am busy working with the Avon-Maitland District School Board. And I have 2 roles with my board. I work as a grade 1-2 teacher half-time at Stephen Central, and my other half-time role is as a technology coach for my board. So my portfolio includes blogging as pedagogy in my board, and currently I support staff in 24 schools who are using blogging as a platform to improve student learning. So I'll tell you a little bit about how I got started with blogging, and that was actually back in 2011. I was working on developing a resource that's now available to you called the Digital Human Library, and I decided that blogging maybe might be a good way to introduce my resource and help spread the word. And it wasn't long before I realized that blogging wasn't as simple as I first anticipated it to be. It was very easy for me to share the work that I was doing, but I noticed after a while that I seemed to be just writing to myself, for myself. And I learned a lot of lessons about blogging going through that process, and most importantly, I learned how to build an audience, and that's a very key piece in the blogosphere, and something that we'll talk about in detail tonight is how to actually go out and build that audience. So I just want to start with an introduction to blogging, and I'm going to share a little video in a minute that sort of tells the story of blogging, just so we're all on the same page and we share a common understanding. And then I'll be interested to hear from the group where you're at in the world of blogging. So Louise, if you'd like to go ahead and start that first video, what is a blog, that would be great.
Okay. Oh, you know what? I had the link right here, and then I went and got the Digital Human Library link, so now I have that one. Here we go.
Thanks for
sharing. All right, folks, I'm going to drop the link into the web tour here, and it's a YouTube video, so it's going to start right away with your audio. I'll also put the link in the chat. If the web tour isn't quite working for you, you can click it from the chat as well.
And if you could just let me know when you're finished, then I can pick up where we left off.
Okay, it looks like pretty much everyone's finished there, Lee.
Perfect. Great. All right. Well, if you'd like to come on back, I'm just going to go back to my deck here. So just, I love that little video. It's a quick little introduction or overview to the idea of blogging and the purpose of blogging and how it got started. And it really does just, it continues to grow. The next piece that I want to get to is sort of to do a quick poll of those of you here in attendance tonight, just to see if you are blogging, what platform you're using. Why don't we start there, and I'll turn that over to Louise, and Louise can explain how to use the polling tool here for this activity.
There you go, folks. You're pretty quick. So Lee's slides got A, B, C, D, E next to the different blogging platforms. So that polling tool that was a green check mark is now A, B, C, D, E. So you can go ahead and make your choice from there if you're using any. If you're using anything different, you can let us know in the chat. And if you're not using any at all yet, you can just leave your response blank.
Okay, so it looks like we have a few bloggers in attendance, and some of you that are here, hopefully by the end of tonight's session will be excited and inspired to move ahead with blogging. I'm really looking forward to sharing the experiences that I've had with blogging in my classroom. So what I'm going to do now is just give you 2 minutes, and in a second I'll ask Louise to set the timer for 2 minutes and share the link to my class blog. And I'll just give you some time to sort of browse around and see the kinds of things that we're sharing as a grade 1-2 classroom. And before we go ahead and do that, I just want to point out that across the top of the blog, those are pages that you can create in your blog. And pages typically house content that is more static, content that isn't changing very often. It's a great space to post resources for your audience, as well as for the students. And then down the middle of the blog, the large section there is where you would create your posts, and that's where the post information shows up. And then along the right-hand side, that's called a sidebar menu, also known as a widget. Those are widget spaces. So I may be referring to some of those terms as we work through the session. So again, pages across the top in the menu, your posts take up the largest section in the main body of the blog, and then along the right-hand sidebar, we have our widgets. So Louise, if you want to share the link to my class blog, and if you could set the timer for 2 minutes, we can give our group some time to look around.
There we go. Timer set for 2 minutes, folks. That link that was just posted in the chat, if you want to open that up, and that's Lee's class blog, and you can just take a gander around there.
Great, thank you. All right, and that sounded like the bell. All right, perfect. So hopefully you had a chance to at least look at some of the different spaces on my class blog, and I'll be showcasing some of the content on the blog, and if there are some questions at the end, we can revisit the blog and talk about different spaces there. So I want to move on now and talk about blogging as pedagogy. And I understand blogging to be about relationships and learning. And I've spent a lot of time sort of trying to come up with a creative way to explain really blogging as such a complex process. And this is what I've been able to come up with so far. That blogging is about purposeful and authentic writing in digital spaces with a global audience. It's about finding new ways to improve on the quality of our conversations by collaborating and problem solving with our global audience, thinking critically about our thinking, and documenting our learning journey. It's about reciprocating with an emphasis on quality, providing students and teachers with authentic experiences to read, write, comment, reflect, and connect in digital spaces while observing digital citizenship, responsibilities, and rights. It's about making learning and thinking visible, searchable, and available to others. Blogging is a very complex process, and the deeper that I move into blogging, the more and more layers I discover. But that also makes it more and more exciting. And blogging for me has really cracked that problem of engagement. I love this quote by Mike Burrill. If you can crack the problem of engagement, not just are you paying attention, but are you fascinated by this? If you can crack engagement and deep learning, then you've cracked 21st century schooling. And providing students with an opportunity to blog about their experiences opens up that opportunity and gives kids an authentic audience and motivates them and engages them in an exciting way. Blogging is, as I mentioned, a complex process with lots of layers, and even just having a quick look at some of the skills here, and I'm not sure if you can read some of the text on the slide, but there are so many skills that we target when we engage students in blogging. And I think very importantly, and I try to remember this always, is that everyone you ever meet knows something you don't. And blogging is all about community, about collaboration, and about audience. And the opportunities to learn from a global audience really open up more opportunities for learning for our students. And I think last but not least is when we provide students with the opportunity to use blogging as a platform for learning, our students inspire us. So I'm going to move into a discussion about blogging and how it improves student outcomes as well as student learning. The outcomes that I'll be discussing this evening are communication, collaboration, critical thinking and problem solving, creativity, citizenship, and character. And you may have heard those referred to as 6 C's, or 4 C's and a P, with citizenship and character included in that piece as well. So to start off my sharing about how blog can be used to improve student communication, I want to share this short video by Kid President, and if you haven't seen this video, it's very enjoyable. So I'm going to ask Louise to please share that link in the chat box, as well as open up that YouTube video for our guests.
All right, folks, just like before, here it comes, and a green check mark when you're finished. like we're all just about done. Tab, if you're there, let us know.
Right. Okay, I think we'll go ahead. Yeah. All right, so I'm just going to resume sharing. Okay, and I love that video. I think it's a really cute and funny reminder of you know, a lot of the different parts of a conversation, and remembering to include certain parts of the conversation. And it wasn't until I started blogging with my students that I felt I kept having to go back and explicitly teach how to have a conversation, because now we're asking kids to have conversations and communicate in an online environment, in a digital space. So all of those skills that are automatics for you, you know, do need to be explicitly taught when you're asking kids then to apply those skills in an online space. And I found this conversation map that I thought was an interesting way to think about teaching those skills. Before I move forward in the deck, I just want to explain that on each slide you're going to see a yellow box, and in that yellow box I'm just highlighting the app or the tool on the iPad that was used to create some of the images that you're going to see tonight. So if you have any questions, feel free to type in the chat box and stop me as I go if you want to ask further. I think you'll notice though that the students in my class use a limited number of apps very effectively, and that's really important to me, and I'll talk a little bit more as well about how I choose apps and why I choose the different apps that I choose to use while we go through the different slides. So one way we communicate learning, and I find this is a great starting place for anyone who's blogging, is that you're starting to document the learning that's happening in your classroom. And a very easy way to do that is just to photograph the things that are happening, take videos, and share that on your blog. And I think the immediate audience that we have in mind are our parents, and that's a fantastic place to begin. The blog can be used as a communication tool as well to make our learning visible. So students can write about what's happening in the classroom, write about their learning, talk about their learning, and as well use images. And here I've got a yellow tab that has the space Creative Commons. I just want to use the polling tool for a second. And if you could put a green check mark beside your name if you're familiar with Creative Commons and that space online. So if you are, you want to put a green check mark beside, and if not, a red X. Okay, so it looks like most of you are unfamiliar with Creative Commons. When students and teachers included, anyone takes or borrows images from online, it's important to note that the images that you take from Google or any other search engine are more than likely copyright protected, or the permission hasn't been given for those pictures to be shared. So Creative Commons, and I see that Louise, thank you, has posted the link there. Creative Commons is a space that allows you to search for content online that has permission to be reproduced, which means that if you want to find a picture of a butterfly, you can visit the Creative Commons site, type in your search terms in the search box, and then choose, do you want to search Google Images through that Creative Commons filter. And by doing so, the images that you find are more than likely available, and permission has been given for those images to be reproduced or shared. So it is actually a violation of copyright to take images from Google or the internet because permission hasn't been previously given. There is a little note that I attached in the bottom of the slide here that Creative Commons is not a search engine but offers access to search services provided by other independent organizations. It's still really important that you ensure the images that you are using and putting on your blog or that your kids are researching that permission has been given for those pictures to be reproduced. So just a little side note there about image searches, and this was information that was new to me about 2 years ago. I had never heard of Creative Commons, and I am doing my best to spread that news around, so I would ask that you do the same in the spirit of fair sharing. So back to communication, I want to focus then again on how the blog can be used as a way to improve student communication. And the blog is a space that allows students to share their thinking. No problem, thanks Heather for that. It's wonderful that students can capture sort of moments that we wouldn't have a chance to experience or talk about, and then they use those moments as well to springboard into other activities. So for example, this student here took a picture and then wrote, "I see a cave in the trees, maybe this is where the fairies live." And about 2 weeks later, she wrote this fabulous story about fairies. And I knew exactly where that idea came from, and it framed the conversation that I had with her about her piece of writing in a different way, because I did have that sort of that magic window into some of the things that she was thinking while out on a nature walk, and she chose to document some of those things and those ideas. Unfortunately, Erin, we can't. This was the best we could do. Erin's question in the chat box there is to expand them to full screen. Can you read any of the text that that's on the slide, Erin? Is that why? I don't know if you want to use your microphone or just tap in the chat box. All right, okay. Yeah, I wish it could be bigger too. Unfortunately, Louise and I weren't able to adjust the size anymore. All right, thanks. So blogging as a tool for communication as well allows you to capture conversations. And here my students used Explain Everything to record a conversation about solving a math problem. And to be able to capture those conversations and then share those conversations and make those visible and available to other people opens up opportunities for collaboration, which we'll talk about shortly. The blog is also used to continue conversations. This is not a conversation that I want or expect you to read. The colors that this student has chosen make it a little challenging, but I'll just tell you the story behind this conversation. Here was a student who had a friend and wrote about his friend moving away and that he was feeling sad, and my response to him was, you know, maybe we can reconnect with that student because you have a blog now, so you have a public space online that can be accessed by anybody, and we do a lot of video conferencing in our class, so I suggested that maybe we try to get in touch with his friend's teacher and see if we can video conference. So this conversation went on, and we ended up talking about empathy, and I was able to share some links with this student to different videos about empathy, and then asked him to write about what he learned. So here was an opportunity where a piece of writing he did turned into this whole other conversation, and we have now had a chance to introduce this student's friend to blogging, and he's now commenting on his blog. And actually just yesterday we video conferenced with this student's friend and his classmates in Alberta. So it was a very exciting thing to happen, and because we had this opportunity to continue that conversation, you know, great things happened. And I mean, don't get me wrong, not all conversations continue on the way this one did, but it's a unique example of how, you know, one piece of writing, because there was a space where we could continue that chat, it really developed and evolved into something great. So again, when we look at blog as a communication tool, we can also record observations. And here is an opportunity where I'm watching a student present her show and share to a group of kids, and the other kids are asking her questions, and I can use the camera on my iPad and I can record that, and then I can share that. She can share that on her blog, and she can invite other people to share in that experience with her as well. What I also love about the blog as a communication tool is it changes the whole idea of accountability in the classroom. And we often ask our students to do different things, but you know, especially when we break into small groups, and I'm going to share a series of examples in a second. You know, do you know what's happening in all of those groups, especially if you're working with one group in particular? Do you know if your students are on task, and what are they getting out of those experiences? Because we can't be present in every moment for every conversation, and I was finding that very challenging. So I just want to take a quick poll here again. How many teachers in the group teach in a primary or junior classroom? And if you teach in a primary or junior classroom, if you could put the check mark beside your name, and then I will know. And if you're teaching in an intermediate, if you want to hit the red X. Perfect. I just wasn't sure if we had anyone else visit. I know the session was designed for primary teachers. I just want to make sure that I'm not missing anybody. I love this slide. It makes me laugh. I love this age, old enough to know better, young enough to get away with it. And I'm sure, hopefully, there were some smiles there. That's how I feel sometimes looking out into my classroom when my kids are working in groups. Yeah, that's my catch-up. So how are we making students accountable for their learning? And I think one of the really valuable pieces about blogging is that we can add in that accountability piece. I do a version of Daily 5 in my classroom, and I'm going to show, I'm showcasing one student's blog, so you can see sort of that consistency across examples of how this student is using technology and the blog to not only be accountable for her learning, but to further her learning as well. So during our Read to Self activity, students use an app called Recording Light. And here I'll take a minute just to talk about this app and how I choose apps. So Recording Light is a free app. That's one of the key things that I look for, that the app is free. The next piece that I look at when I'm choosing an app is the export options. And if I don't have the option to export it in a format that's compatible with the blogging platform that I'm using, so in this case it's EduBlogs, then it's not an app that I'm likely to use. So I either need to be able to take a screenshot, I need to be able to export it as a JPEG, so a picture, or I need to be able to save it to my camera roll as an MP4 or a video file. And in this case, the Recording Light app allows you to save and export the recording as an MP4, save it in your camera roll, and then you can easily upload it to your blog. So it's really slick, it's user-friendly, very simple interface, probably the best recording app that I've found, and I can say that I've tried probably about 40+ different ones. So this is the money right here. So what I have my students do during Read to Self is I have them record themselves reading. So they'll take a recording, read a number of pages. I ask them to keep it under 2 minutes, and once they finished reading, I ask them to then go back and listen to the recording and reflect on that and write about one thing that they did well as a reader and one thing they need to improve on. So this student here wrote, I'm good at recognizing the words, and the one thing that she's working on is she needs to work on some strategies like finding the little word. So I can read that and know that she's working on finding smaller words and bigger words. So not only do I know that she's reading during independent reading time, I know that she's also reflecting on her reading and thinking critically about what she needs to do. I know that I can ask this student what her learning goals are, and she's able to tell me because this accountability piece, again, is built into that activity. During my Read to Someone activity, I have kids partner up and they take turns reading to each other. Thanks, Tab. So kids partner up and take turns reading to each other. So instead here in this moment, I don't want to capture the reading. I want to record the conversation that happens, because that's the important piece here when a student is reading to another student. So I have one student read, and the student who has read would then use his or her iPad to record the conversation that happens afterwards. I'm going to ask, oh, Louise is putting good. I skipped over the link to listen to the one student read, but I see that Louise has put it there. Thank you. I am going to give you a minute here to click on the link that Louise has shared in the chat box, so you can just hear a sample of the conversation that was recorded between two kids, and this one is quite short. So if you want to go ahead and do that now, thanks. And if you could give us a green check mark once you're finished. like we're starting to wrap things up. Okay. There we go. Perfect. All right. So just a quick example of that conversation, and that also gives me more information about where they're at and what they're learning. So I know that my students understand what a setting is, what characters are. You know, there are some great conversations that have been recorded about the plot and what's happening in the story. So I can take that and use that as a tool to help my students continue to grow and expand on the conversations they're having. The next piece in my daily 5 is listen to reading. So the kids have the option to choose from a few different reading apps. We might use Newsomatic, which I don't believe is free anymore, but a fantastic reading app. We also have Hooked on Phonics. We use RazKids, and I think that's it. Newzella is another one that we've just sort of exploring right now. So the kids can choose something to listen to. So the accountability piece that's built in here is that once they finish listening to a story, they need to go back and take a screenshot of their favorite part. And once they've done that, they then need to reflect on that part and write about what was happening in the story. So they're giving a brief summary, and then they're also going on to explain why they liked it. So it's giving a reason and really focusing on that why question. The next piece in the daily 5 is the work on writing piece. So here I would have my students with paper and pencil work in their writer's notebooks, and once they finish doing a piece of writing, they would take a picture of it and just do a quick post, or what we call a quick post. And a quick post is starting a new blog post, giving it a title, taking a picture of your work, and then publishing it. So there's no additional writing piece involved because the student has already done the writing. So in a lot of cases, we'll just use the camera and photograph work that we've done. So that's another way to build in that accountability piece, that you are going to be sharing this writing you're doing in your book. It's not just for you. It's not just for the teacher. So while those 4 groups are working, I'm working with a guided reading group at the back table. And there, I don't publish anything or post anything about my guided reading sessions. But when we do have guided writing sessions, my students do post their guided writing activity on their blog when they're finished. So I'm not sure if you can see the detail there, but you know, we were working on a number of things, and then here's the next step to continue on. So that's just sort of a quick overview of one way that I'm starting to use technology to build in, again, that accountability piece and make learning visible and available to other people. So still within or under the umbrella of communication, the blog can also be used to document descriptive feedback. So as teachers, we are very skilled in the art of providing feedback that is uplifting, motivating, and encouraging. So to be able to record that on the blog not only houses all that descriptive feedback in one space, whether we've written on a student's piece of work and it was captured in a picture, or we're writing it directly in the comment space on the blog, the feedback is there and it's available to the student. They can go back to it. And what I like about the blog is that once you go ahead and share that feedback, the expectation is that the student will reply to that feedback. So again, that accountability piece, they've read the feedback, they're going to reply. There's a question to answer, or they're just going to reply and reiterate what you've said that they need to work on for a next step. It provides more information for parents as well, because the blog serves as a collection of student learning over time. Teachers that have these students next year have the opportunity to go back and look at not only, you know, all of those developing literacy skills, but the next steps that they were working on, which I think starts them much further ahead than they would not having that record of learning over time. This is actually a student written by an intermediate student, a poem written by an intermediate student, and if you can't see the text there, it's a haiku. 5 syllables here, 7 more syllables there. Are you happy now? And this is a perfect haiku, but it always reminds me of that whole idea of audience and who are we asking our kids to write for. And as you know, as amazing as we are as teachers, the challenge is that engagement piece. And students are only excited and motivated to write for their teachers for so long. And then that excitement wears off. And as soon as we build in or provide the opportunity to connect with an audience outside of the classroom, and a blog allows them to do that, they start to care about whether they have capitals at the beginning of a sentence, periods at the end. They start to care about whether their writing makes sense and it can be read. So that whole idea of audience is a real motivator and engages kids, I think, to want to be better and improve. So the communication piece is really where I think it's a starting point for everyone, and that's I'm definitely where I started, and when I work with different teachers in my board, it is that great place to start, just to start making your learning visible and accessible and available. So the one question that I'll come back to throughout the session is, and what I will challenge you to do is think about how you can take what's happening in your classroom and make it visible. How can you share it with other people? So I'm going to go ahead and move into collaboration. And there are lots of opportunities, and the blog provides opportunity for collaboration. And the natural starting point is that teachers and students are collaborating on the blog. So you now have an online space that can record that conversation that you may have with a student. The blog also is a great platform for collaboration between students. So this is a student of mine having a conversation with another student at a different school about a video conference that we had with kids in Africa. And what I loved about this particular conversation is that the one student in my class was asked, you know, can you talk more about Taekwondo? Because that was a sport that, that was quite popular in Africa. And my student's response was, I don't know much about Taekwondo except people punch and kick. I will find out. So I love that kids are motivating other kids to want to learn new things so they can go back and share. So blogging, again, a very powerful tool to build collaboration between kids in different schools. Aunt Judy here, blogs between, or collaboration between students and their families. Aunt Judy wrote to my student Josh here every day, and she was so thrilled that, you know, now living in a different part of the world, that, you know, she had the opportunity to connect with her nephew and write to him as often as she wanted. She had a chance to take part in his learning and be a part of his education, and that was so exciting for her. This particular student had probably 11 or 12 family members writing to him on a regular basis. So part of his routine, which was unique from the rest of the class, was that he came in and checked his comments daily because he had such an overwhelming response just from his family alone, which, I mean, not only motivated him to want to write, but, you know, motivated him to learn so many more things. It was very exciting. Opportunities for collaboration between students and experts. My students work with experts, I would say probably every few weeks for sure. We connect with experts from the Digital Human Library, and I'm also not afraid to reach out and contact people in my school community to ask them to get involved. In this particular case, we were learning about weather, and we had lots of questions, so I thought who better to answer our questions than Jeff Colson from Environment Canada. And Jeff Colson was kind enough to write to us on our blog. And that would be definitely one thing I would love to encourage you to do, is to reach out to people outside of your classroom that could share in your learning and become part of that audience. And working to build that audience means that you definitely need to, you know, to not only visit other blogs, but to also connect with people in your community and invite them into your space. And that's one thing that that I've learned, you know, sort of working through this, and a conversation that I often have with teachers is that posting all this great stuff, but nobody's coming to my blog. And the analogy that I share is, well, if you throw a party but you don't invite anybody, then you're having a party for one. And a blog can very much become a party for one. So it's so important that you do reach out and, you know, not only you know, reach out in your own community, but start visiting blogs, because people are also, other bloggers are looking for that audience. And bloggers build community, as you saw in that video early on. So it's an opportunity for you to experience other blogs, leave your comment and be an audience for someone else, and then invite that someone else to be part of your audience as well. there are lots of opportunities for collaboration between students and global learning partners. A space that I use quite often to connect my kids with students around the world is the website ePals. And I know I can type that in the chat box for you here. It's epals.com, and it's a fantastic space for outsourcing teachers and students in different countries around the world who want to write back and forth to you. ePals was sort of stemmed from the whole idea of having a pen pal but moving it into an online space. So a great space again to encourage collaboration and communication between your students and kids living in different parts of the world. So again, the blog can be used as a powerful collaborative tool, but the important thing to remember is that you need to be an audience for other bloggers and invite those bloggers to become part of your audience. And your audience will sort of ebb and flow. There's some people will come in and be an audience for you for a certain period of time and a certain project, and then you have access to that audience again when that kind of learning comes up and you need to draw from their expertise. And then you also have that regular audience, which could be parents and family and kids. So your audience will change. You'll have people that change, and then you'll also have people that are there as that constant for you. So I want to move into a quick chat about how the blog can be used to improve critical thinking and problem solving. And I want to start with this quick video here, and I'll ask Louise to open up that video in YouTube, and then if you can give us the green check mark when you're done, we'll carry on.
Sorry about that. I should have turned my mic on before I grabbed the link. Okay, here it comes. And Lee, I know this video can go for a few minutes, so perhaps if people have gotten to a certain point and they're good, I'm just mindful of our time, and I know you've got lots to share.
Yes.
Sorry, I exited out of there earlier because another video was going to automatically start on my YouTube. So sorry about that.
That's fine.
Back to you, Lee.
That's okay. All right, so I'm going to resume sharing. So hopefully you got to see most of that video. I love that video as an introduction to critical thinking and problem solving. I love Louise's comment, a little collaborative problem solving might have helped here, absolutely. So I love that as just to get your minds on. The video makes me laugh every time I watch it. the importance of teaching our students to think critically so we don't have any kids that get stuck on the escalator. And the next piece there is asking questions, and the whole idea behind asking questions and how important it is to ask questions and ask good questions. And I want to share this, this Lucky Louie video here just to demonstrate the power of one simple question. So Louise, if you want to go ahead and start that video. Okay, it looks like we're wrapping things up. A few more. All right, I think I'm going to head back to my slideshow here. So hopefully you had a chance to finish watching that video. That video makes me laugh every time I watch it. And it really, I think, does a great job demonstrating how powerful asking just one simple question could be, and the amount of information that this darling little girl gets by just asking the question why. And the fact that he was willing to entertain that question time and time again, it's really quite amazing just how much information can be gained by, again, empowering kids and teaching kids to ask questions. This is an example of a post that a student did using the app Number Pieces. It's a base 10 block app, very slick, provides you with some really fun features and a great, just a great change for kids once in a while, in addition to using the hands-on manipulatives. So here's an example of students asking each other questions. And this student was asking one of my kids a question about how long it took him to build that Minecraft man. There's the compliment that she likes the colors that he used. And how much is that? I'm guessing it's 450. So there's questioning going on, there's estimating, and this encouraged a lengthy conversation between those two students about the value of these base 10 blocks and the value of his picture, and the conversation evolved then into a challenge posed by my student back to this other student about creating a picture with X number of base 10 blocks. So a lot of exciting learning happening there. We really want teaching to be a reflection of learning, and teaching kids how to reflect on their learning really focuses on that metacognitive piece in our curriculum. Here's a student that finished working on a book about communities around the world, and this was a student who for the first 4 months of school refused to pick up a pencil, wouldn't write anything down. And once we started connecting with kids around the world and video conferencing and blogging, he was inspired to write, and he wrote. And as much as you may look at that little bit there and think, well, for a grade 2, 3/4 of the way through the year, there's not a whole lot there. But for this particular student, this was a huge milestone and a huge success, and it was celebrated because he's was not only writing, but created a book and was reflecting on his writing and his work. I'm not sure if you can read that. I haven't liked writing until I made this book. Sometimes I dream about traveling the world and talking to new people. Columbia is a special place. It takes time to make a book. It's a hard thing to do. I have a blog you can visit my blog at, and then shares his address. So a very powerful moment for this student, and a very exciting moment for me as an educator to find that hook that motivated him and inspired him to do. Reflection from the teacher's point of view as well. I am the founder and moderator of the Technology Learning Community blog in my board, and this is the blogging hub in my board. And Louise, if you wouldn't mind just typing the link to that blog in the chat box, you can have a look at that blog at some point if you like. This is a space where teachers in my board connect and share and reflect on how they're using technology in their classroom, specifically in and around blogging, but there's lots of other resources and ideas shared there. So really valuable. It's really valuable to take the time to do that reflection. And I know that it is more time out of your already busy day, but it helps you consolidate that learning and think about those next steps for yourself as an educator. The blog can also be used as a tool to showcase the critical thinking and problem solving that's happening in your classroom. So here were two students, and I'm not going to go ahead and show that video, but Louise can share the link to that blog post video in the chat box, and you can have a look at it later if you like. Here's a student that was working with another student, and they were collaborating. They were using Explain Everything, and they were looking at comparing shapes in math. And I was standing behind them filming that conversation. So there are, again, those multiple layers where you've got that communication, collaboration, critical thinking, problem solving, and that whole learning experience is being documented and then shared on the blog and made visible for other people to then also communicate and collaborate with us to improve learning and improve those outcomes. Another example of the way you can use a blog is to transcribe a conversation. So I've had a lot of positive parental feedback from this one, so I thought I would share it with you. We do tribes in my classroom, and every Friday we have a community circle check-in chat where we just sit and we talk about things that are going well, some of the wishes that we have, so the kids have a chance to voice some of the things they'd like to see happening in the classroom. And then we also take time to look at things that aren't working. And then we take time to not only think critically about that, but then also to talk about how we're going to solve those problems. And just by sitting with my laptop on my lap and typing our conversation as it happens, and I type the student's name in brackets at the end of their comment, I'm able to capture that conversation and again share that and make that piece of learning visible. It's great for parents to see that yes, we actually do talk about the problems that your kids are having, and your students do have a voice, and your kids do have a chance to say, yeah, I want to be able to do this in the classroom, and I want to be able to do this. And my teaching partner and I go out of our way to make sure that we can make one of those wishes come true each week so students feel that their voices are heard. So I'm now going to move into, and I love this video because I think this is a great example of how a blog can be used to document and showcase learning over time. And this is an example titled Dear Sophie. So Louise, if you'd like to go ahead and open that video, and then if you can give us the green check mark when you're finished watching it, we'll chat about that. It looks like we're finishing up here. All right. Okay, so I'm just going to resume sharing here. So I absolutely love that video, and I can't help but get teary every time I watch it. And although it's a parent emailing, you know, his daughter, I look at the blog as really a parallel to that whole idea that you're documenting that journey. And a blog documents that learning journey. And what I love about the blog is that the learning journey that's being documented is not from my perspective on each child. The students are documenting their own learning journey. So even though, you know, especially when we get started, you know, I'm more or less saying, okay, let's go ahead and blog about that or share that on your blog. There comes a point in time where something clicks with each child and they decide, you know, I want to blog about that, and they start looking for opportunities to share and asking if they can do that on their own. And then the blog really takes on a life of its own and becomes that unique space created by each individual student. So I want to speak a little bit about blogs as portfolios now. And the whole blog really itself can serve as a portfolio, as a collection of student learning. But the work that I'm doing in my school board focuses on looking at the blog as that collection of learning over time, and then the portfolio piece is an opportunity for students each year in each grade to highlight or focus on some of the work they've been doing and really take some time to think critically and reflect on that work. So what I'm showing you here is just an example of what that might look like, where you would have you know, a tab or a page across the top of your blog or the student's blog by grade. So I'm just going to showcase an example of what that would look like where a kid started in my classroom. So the tab you can see across the top of the page here at the top right is their grade 1 portfolio. We have them only do a writing and a math portfolio. So there'll be a piece done at the end of first term and then a piece done at the end of second term. So here's a sample of, this is a grade 1 student, his writing portfolio. So all he did, because we weren't blogging in September, lots of things going on in the classroom, plus, I mean, these kids are fresh out of kindergarten, and we're really focusing in September and October on building routines and working with, paper and pencil and reading text and all those great things that we do in primary. And blogging gets introduced usually in mid-October. So to find a writing sample, we need to go back to their writer's notebooks and what have they been working on. So what I ask kids to do is look at a writing sample from September, which you can see here, and then a writing sample from February, and then actually take some time to reflect and think critically about how they've improved. So I'm just going to go ahead and read the student's reflection. He wrote, "In September, I was sounding out the letters, and now I am writing 1,000 words. At the beginning of the year, I was just writing one word, and now I am writing sentences. I wasn't using spaces, now I'm using spaces. Before I wasn't using periods, and now I am. I wasn't using details, and now I am." So this is coming from a grade 1 student in February, non-prompted, by himself, and really blew my mind. It's quite remarkable the way that my kids are thinking about their thinking and thinking about their learning, and really given the time, right, that time to actually go back and look at, okay, where was I and where am I now? Where's the growth and how am I going to articulate that? Here's an example of the grade 2 portfolio. So because students haven't been blogging in grade 1, the twos that I have, they're starting their first year with me. So they have the math and the writing portfolio that are, again, pages there. So again, here's a sample of writing from September. I'm not sure if you can see, but there are literally 3 words on the page. And now he's writing in paragraphs. His reflection is very similar. In September, I can only write 4 words, but now I can write about 4 sentences. In September, I forgot the uppercase, but now I can write with uppercase. In September, I always forgot my spaces, but in February, I always use spaces. And now I'm going back on the iPad to listen to my sentence and fix my words. So if you actually look at his writing when he uses technology, it's even better than what you see produced with paper and pencil, because he can go back, have his reading read to him, fix the words, use the keyboard tool that prompts the correct spelling. There are so many more options available that I really firmly believe is improving him at a much faster rate as a writer. So I love this video here, and I think I'm just going to ask Louise to share the link, and it's something that you can go back to. This is a video about the inventor of Rubik's Cube, and the video is called "A Question Waiting to be Answered." So I'll just ask Louise to share that, and if we have time, we'll go back and look at it. But for now, I want to give you some time to explore the blog as a creative space. And what I've set up for you here is, and Louise is going to share the link in the chat box. It's a link to a short little deck about how the blog can be used as a creative space. And you're going to have the opportunity to do your own sort of self-guided tour of my creativity piece. And you'll notice that there are videos that you can watch, there are slides that you can flip through. And if you come across a slide that has a yellow star, that means that there is a link to a video. And you may choose to watch it, or you may choose to not watch it. It's up to you. So I'm going to leave that up to you as a chance for you to do a little self-guided tour and look at the way blog can be used as a way to inspire creativity, as a way to house creativity, just as a creative space in general. So again, look for the yellow star. There is a video link. Otherwise, this slide has the necessary text on it to take you through that tour. So Louise, if you could set the timer for 5 minutes, please, and I'll let you have at her. Okay, if you could come on back, and we'll continue on. We've got about 8 minutes left, so I'm going to go ahead and this is a video that I am going to ask you all to watch, and it's a video I absolutely love, and I think it's a beautiful way to think about how we can inspire creativity in our students, because I think this is a challenge for many of us, and I hope that you find the answer is sweet and simple. So Louise, if you wouldn't mind opening up that video and sharing the link in the chat box as well, please.
Lee, I just want to double check that I've got the right one. Is this the Mr. D assessment?
No. Oh, do I not have the... Now I can't click on this because you won't see it, right? You won't hear it?
Are you able to drop the link in the chat yourself? Do you have access to that?
Yep, I'm going to do that for right now.
Awesome.
All right. My apologies, folks. I didn't realize I missed that. All right. So there's the link to the video if you want to go ahead and watch that, and then you can join me back give the green check mark when you're done, and then come on back and join us. Thanks, Louise. Okay, it looks like you're finishing up there. I'm just going to go ahead and hopefully you had a chance to catch the end of that. So I love that video because the whole idea behind creativity is that we just need to give our kids time. And I know it's difficult in the hustle and bustle of the day, and I find that when we do give our kids that time, that's when they really do shine. And giving them time to blog and time to capture that learning and document that learning really results in a lot of creative work. I have some, a few slides that you can see along the left here as I scroll down about how the blog can be used as an assessment tool, which I think I've touched on and hopefully given you some ideas there. And I am unfortunately going to skip over some of the slides that I created just to talk about the ways that we're using social media in the classroom. But I am going to take a minute and stop here and really visit the idea of student safety, because I think that's one of the last pieces here that's maybe a question for some of you is, how is this safe and what can we do to keep students safe? Because really the whole idea of a stranger is changing. And I like to think about strangers as friends that we haven't met yet. And I love that quote. Because really that's what we're doing. We are a collaborative culture, collaborative society, and we engage with strangers all the time. And I think we feel safer in some cases doing so online. But how then does that translate for our students, and what can we do to keep our students safe? And the one platform that I can speak to is EduBlogs. And one of the big reasons we chose EduBlogs is not only because we can continue on with student blogs year after year, but it's because of their safe and secure privacy settings. So when you set up an EduBlogs blog, you have the option of choosing sort of your level of privacy, whether you want to approve all posts before they're made public. One of the mandatory settings in my board is that all of the comments have to be approved first. So anything coming into the blog gets seen by you before it's made visible to the students and to the public. EduBlogs has an entire staff dedicated to ensuring that students are able to work in an authentic digital space, but in a safe and secure way. So I do really love EduBlogs for that piece, and safety is first and foremost at the front. And every board has the different policies on showing student video and student images, and that really comes down to a conversation between you and your administrator, as well as the parents in your community in terms of their comfort level. Thanks, Louise. Louise has posted a link to the EduBlogs website there. So different privacy settings, and different teachers are comfortable, again, sharing different information. But of course, we always tell our students that the blog is a tool for learning. It's not a space to share personal information. And there's a whole series of lessons around digital citizenship and how to teach kids to be safe online. And I think blogging is a platform that gives them an authentic space to experience working and learning in an online environment. So I'm just going to wrap things up here with why this is important, and I just want to draw your attention to this, that more than half of children are using social media by the age of 10, Facebook being the most popular. So I really do believe that as early as kindergarten, we need to start teaching kids how to learn and exist in an online environment in a safe way. And we also want to encourage our kids to use that online space to make a difference in the world. So it's not just about what you know and sharing what you know, but it's what you're going to do with that knowledge and who you're going to be as a result of that learning. And that's inquiry. What do you know? What are you going to do with it, and who are you going to be as a person? And here's a great example of a student who is using a social media platform, using a blog to raise money and build schools in countries that that are impoverished. And she's doing amazing things using blogging as a tool, not only to improve her own learning, but as a space to share and make a difference in the world. So I'm just going to leave you with this thought here that kids will often defy expectations if you give them the opportunity. And I hope that I've left you thinking about not only your digital footprint, but the digital footprint that you are helping your students to create. And I'm just going to let you know that Louise has shared the link to this deck. You have access to it, and the last 5 slides here on the left in the slide sort, you can see really housed information and resources related to using EduBlogs in the classroom that you're welcome to use. And again, this deck will be available to you, and you can view some of the videos we didn't have a chance to look at tonight. So that's my time, and I want to thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me tonight to allow me to share my experiences using blogging as a platform for learning.
Thank you so much, Lee. You've shared so many ideas and strategies, and hopefully teachers have picked up those strategies and will use them in their classroom to, as you said, to engage students and use blogging to improve student communication and learning. I too want to thank each of you for giving of your time to participate with us tonight. And Louise will be sending an email tomorrow with links to the resources and to the recorded session. I would appreciate it if you could take a few minutes to fill in the exit survey and share your feedback and suggestions. The link is in the middle of the slide, and we do use your feedback and suggestions to improve our program as we plan. We're already looking at planning for the fall, so your feedback certainly is important to us. Please use the link at the bottom of the screen to check out upcoming sessions. We have some new sessions scheduled for April, and we'll probably be putting in some other sessions in May. So keep checking the calendar for the sessions that are coming up, and do share. And here, thank you, Louise. Louise has a list of the upcoming sessions, and you can see that on April 27th, we have a new session scheduled there. Do share the link with your colleagues and encourage them to join us. It's always great to have new participants in the room. So thank you, Lee, thank you, Louise, and thank you all. Have a good evening. Good night.
Night.
Yes, thank you all very, very much. I've just loaded up the chat with a bunch more links as well. Lee's Digital Human Library session, the link is there for that archived recording and all those resources. I've also put in the link to our calendar that'll have all these sessions that are on this slide and more, as well as the link to an upcoming session that we have that is specifically on blogging and global collaborative projects. So that might be a good spot for you to start with your blogging experience if you're looking to do that before the end of this year. So thank you all very, very much, and we hope to see you again soon.